today we are saying goodbye to a significant amount of makeup. These are all products that I have tested and they just, for whatever reason, they have not got along well with me. And I think that some of my friends would get more use out of these products. I love talking about products that I love, but I also think it's important to give some screen time and some mentions to the products that didn't work for me because I want you guys to be able to save your money. First of all, starting off with a product I had so much hope for. It is the Makeup by Mario Soft Sculpt Transforming Skin Perfector, and this is the shade Light. Really thought that this was going to be a light coverage, perfecting, but also luminous kind of setting product for a cream bronzer, because that's kind of what it was marketed as. I think ultimately this product kind of did the opposite of what it should be doing. So I actually have the Makeup by Mario bronzer in Light, the powder bronzer, all over my face. That is a staple powder bronzer for me, and I really most of the time don't like powder bronzers, so I feel like that says a lot. This product is quite confusing because for me, on my skin, and I gotta tell you, I don't even have like the largest pores out there. It immediately made my skin look more textured. It felt like there really wasn't enough pigment to truly work as a bronzer, and there certainly aren't enough shades to use this all over the face, which the brand also says to do. So I just feel like the product bit off more than it could chew. It doesn't have to be an all-in-one multifunctional product that you can use like in 15 different ways. And I think a lot of brands are kind of trying to use that as a differentiator so that we are more likely to purchase it. The concept, I was like, whoa, this really can do a lot, and I can't wait to see what it looks like on the skin. But ultimately, the performance, I just didn't like the way it looked on my skin. I'm hoping that someone else has a better time with it. Let's stay on the bronzer train. This is another powder bronzer. It is from One Size. It is the Made for Shade Bronze and Sculpt Trio. I absolutely love this concept. I love that we have multiple shades so you can really mix and match, and ultimately just having a better chance of, you know, creating your perfect shade. Unfortunately, I did not like the way that these blended. The powders themselves are incredibly creamy and very pigmented, and I typically find that when a bronzer has this formula, when it's super creamy, super pigmented, and it isn't pressed as densely, then I find that it can often do that on my skin. So I was really disappointed by this one. I wish that it performed beautifully because I think that the shades are very pretty. And also love the packaging. Very flat, magnetized. It's just a disappointment. By the way, this Makeup by Mario packaging feels a little cheap. Just side note. Wow, we have a lot of different concealers in here. So I'm just gonna like start moving through them. You guys know that I'm very picky with concealers, but I think that everyone has that one makeup category where they have something they love and it's kind of like that irreplaceable item for them. And I'm certainly not immune to that. But here is the Tarte Powerflex concealer. I actually bought the mini, and this, I was so excited because Tarte is known for their concealers. Obviously, the Shape Tape was like a freaking phenomenon, and I really wanted this to work for me, and it just is very drying. For me, it feels super similar to the Hydro Sealer that they came out with, but it just has a little bit more pigment. It just looked dry under my eyes. And that's kind of, you know, a running theme that you're going to see with a lot of the concealers that I don't like. It just didn't do anything for the texture. It did not look smooth. It did not look brightening. It made my under eyes look more tired, which is a consistent theme as well that I deal with concealers under the eyes. This is a product that I bought months and months ago, and I was so bummed when I got it because I wanted it to work so bad. It's the new All-Nighter, the vitamin C with cactus flower water. So I really liked this because it felt like it was kind of borrowing from these kind of tacky base primers, but also mixing it with the technology of like the all-nighter mist from Urban Decay. Almost kind of in line with like the Milk Makeup setting spray, if you guys are familiar with that one. But this is just not that at all. I'm almost tempted to like spray it on my face, but I've learned, you know, from using it that it's just not a good product. The mist is weird. I think the nozzle on this one is, yeah, messed up. If you can see, it just does not distribute the product evenly whatsoever. It smells insanely perfumed as well. It does have a nice grip to it. There are other products and setting mists that I absolutely adore. Go out and buy the one from Revolution, the Infinite Conceal and Define. That one works beautifully, great mist. This one was just an overall mist for me. Another very interesting product that I know you guys will be hearing about one more time, so it's not going straight into the declutter bin, but I did want to quickly mention this. The Maybelline Shadow Blocks. I was excited because this seemed to be a little dupe for the Kaja Bento boxes, but I can tell you right now that it is not. Zero pigment. They just fluff out into nothing. This satin shade, okay, there's something there, but like, would you pay? I think this was at least 12 bucks. Would you pay 12 bucks for that? I wouldn't. And then we have this matte over here, which is like, why not just buy like a little palette from e.l.f.? This formula just does not stack up. Or ultimately, like, save your money and save up for a powder palette that has a better blend. This just, to me, is like such a waste. It's one of those products, and I apologize if this sounds too, like, I don't know, critical, but it's just one of those products where when they're testing it, you gotta wonder what was going through their head, where they're like, yeah, this looks like a good product, like, let's send it out. Because I don't agree. I don't agree. Now, this is the Physicians Formula Mineral Wear Diamond Dust. I also picked this up in hoping that it would be a dupe for like the diamond powder from Fenty. The packaging is very similar. It is not. It kind of, I mean, it is just more of a glittery topper in the same sense, but it's so satin looking that the reflection, it just doesn't feel like a diamond reflector or like a diamond dust. It looks just kind of like a sheer wash of glitter, but not in a way that I think is really mesmerizing or something that you would look forward to putting on just because it's so subtle. It's like a fine glitter, but if you're gonna do glitter, like do glitter. Do a wet looking glitter. Do a really reflective glitter. I feel like the downfall of this product is that it didn't pick a side. You know what I mean? It's sitting somewhere in the middle, and that's what kind of makes it lackluster. Next product is the Fresh Flex Concealer from Honest Beauty. I was super excited about this one. Again, it's more of an affordable brand. And in general, I'm looking for more favorites to find from Honest Beauty because I love their cream blushes. A lot of you guys already know that, but this just didn't do much for me. Unfortunately, it was just a little bit too paint-like under the eyes, a little bit too thin, and it didn't give me enough hydration. And unfortunately, it just became one of those products that exaggerated the hollows under my eyes. So it ends up being a product that I know I'm not going to really use. So I have to pass it along and hope that someone else is going to enjoy it. Next foundation is one that I was quite excited about, but this is not, I don't know. It says breathable and in real life on the top. I mean, it's obviously called the IRL Filter. This is not a breathable looking product. It is incredibly silicone heavy, and it just looks quite heavy on my skin. I think maybe for a photograph, but in person, and that is what the majority of us are using makeup for, not specifically for a photo. In person, it just looked so heavy on my skin. I could like really notice the hair on my skin. I ironically could just notice my pores and my skin texture even more. That kind of happens sometimes when you add too much silicone to a product, and ultimately this was just not a very flattering soft matte to me. So unfortunately, this was not the product that I wanted it to be. Might just not have been necessarily created for my preferences. Another product that I really wanted to love, and you know, I don't actually think that this is a bad product, but I know that it is not for me. It is the Beautiful Skin Radiant Concealer from Charlotte Tilbury. I had so much hope for this, and I do think that it is a nice accompaniment to their Beautiful Skin foundation. A similar texture, more on the thin side. It has a nice emollients to it. It actually has quite a lot of coverage, but it just does not look good on my under eyes. It could look more hydrated. It could flatten out the under eye area a little bit more. It also has this kind of tack to it when you apply it under the eyes, which reminds me more of the traditional creamy, heavier concealers that you have to just use a little bit with. But those are also some concealers that I've typically noticed have exaggerated the hollows under my eyes. You know, like those really thick, you only need a pinpoint kind of concealers. Those typically don't do well under my eyes. They can just exaggerate the sunkenness, and I've noticed that for years. And this concealer reminds me a lot of that. It reminds me of a concealer that would be great to use on the skin, but not necessarily under the thin skin of the eyes. So again, I don't think it's a bad product. It's just not one that I ever foresee revisiting. This was a re-release from Tarte. They recently brought it back, and it's the Cheek Stain, and this is the shade Exposed. Something weird that kind of happened is it started like condensation on the outside of it. I don't know why that is happening. It's not really doing a lot. And again, it's one of those products that I was really holding out a lot of hope for it because I love this shade. I love the shade Exposed from the Amazonian Clay blush line from Tarte. But this, it just doesn't add anything to the skin. It doesn't add a nice vibrance. I think if you really like a subtle blush look, this could definitely be something to look into. The formula doesn't feel very innovative. It definitely feels like an older cheek cream blush kind of product. Like the formula wasn't amped up to add a nice radiance necessarily, to smooth out the skin, to add like a really pretty wet effect on the cheekbones. Like it doesn't really have one thing in particular going for it, in my opinion, other than it is a nice kind of beginner friendly product. But even then I would say there are other products I would recommend first. This Pacifica Fluffy Blush was a product I really wanted to love, but this formula feels, almost feels like homemade makeup. Like it doesn't have a real cosmetic elegance to it, in a sense that it is kind of just feels like beeswax with pigment added, maybe a little bit of a silicone fluff to it, but it does not like to blend on the skin. It doesn't like to work with the skin. So it's more of a like, in theory, it's a nice product, but when it actually performs and is put onto the cheeks, it just doesn't want to stick. It doesn't want to really add a vibrance to the skin. So it's just, unfortunately, a little bit disappointing to me. I also kind of found the same thing to be the case with the bronzer. Though I will say I am trying out a Pacifica lip gloss that I'm really liking. But unfortunately the blush is not working out. Now I do have an upcoming video on the best and worst affordable cream eyeshadows, so you will still see some of these in that video because I want to make sure that I am reiterating the products that I did not like as much. But these are the LA Girl Sunkissed Glow eyeshadow sticks. These just don't really offer much of a blend at all. Like, they don't want to work with the eyelids. That's not an ideal place to be in, especially for a cream shadow. It's just, they're so waxy. Swatched out, when I initially swatched them, I was really excited because I love the shades. I love the concept. It has like these really nice kind of deserty tones, and I really like those tones. But on the eyes, they just look flat and they look and feel waxy. It's not going to really give you the reflection that personally for me, I am looking for in an eyeshadow. I mean, these are more on the satin side, so there should be something there. You know, it doesn't have to be ultra metallic or anything like that, but these aren't really offering even a nice satin finish to me. The texture is really where these go wrong. And ultimately, even if it is a long wear product, even just in theory, if they don't look great from the start, then you're not going to be as likely to use them. I would definitely recommend the e.l.f. No Budge eyeshadow sticks, both the matte and the original formula over these if you're looking for something affordable. Speaking of an eyeshadow stick that did not work for me, this one from Iconic London was a product that I was wanting for a really long time. I finally picked it up and I wish that I just didn't. This is the shade Volcanic. The shade itself, again, swatched out, it looks absolutely phenomenal. Swatches do not tell the full story though, and on the eyes, it just looks flat. It has this, you know, this texture that doesn't want to blend or add emollients. It just wants to kind of sit there and not work with you. Topper is pretty when you know, layer them. This swatch, for me, you know, if I was seeing that, I'd be like, that looks so pretty. But on the eyes, it just looks flat and it doesn't really translate. And that is the big difference between a good and a bad cream eyeshadow for me. If you're gonna add emollients and glitter to the eyes and that is not the effect that is translating, then for me, it's just not a winner. LA Girl Matte Bronzer was another product that I really wanted to love, but I did not like. Actually, the formula is quite similar to the One Size from Patrick Ta. This is very creamy, has quite a lot of pigment to it, very silicone heavy, and unfortunately it just kind of sits on the skin right, you know, on top of the skin surface. It does not want to melt in and look really blended, so it ends up being a bronzer that I can't recommend, which is a bummer because I also liked that it offers you 2 different shades. I really like to try more affordable makeup for you guys and find those favorites, but you know, it doesn't always work out. I'll definitely be talking about this in an upcoming video, but this is from Hard Candy. It is the Plumping Serum Lip Balm. First of all, this is as cheap as makeup gets, you know. Granted, nice amount of product, I would say, but this does not really add much of a plump. It kind of just irritates the lips. It doesn't add a lot of hydration. It looks kind of awkward on the lips as well. It's kind of just color sitting on top of the lips. I am doing an updated best and worst like lip plumper video, a more kind of umbrella lip plumper video in a sense that I'm also doing like lip masks, lip serums that claim to be plumping. It's going to be a really great video if you are interested in lip plumpers, but this will definitely be one of the products that I talk about that unfortunately I did not like. You know, again, I'm trying to find more affordable favorites and this was not an affordable favorite. However, I have found some that are really, really good. I recently tried out this Laura Geller serum blush. I saw it over on TikTok and I don't like it. It smells like paint and it kind of, yeah, really smells like paint and it doesn't work on the skin. It doesn't want to blend with other products. It's really a bummer because you know when you know, haven't really tried out too much from a brand like Laura Geller, I'm excited to try it and be like, oh, this is kind of like a find from this brand that I can finally recommend to you guys. But for me, there are just so many other liquid blushes that I would prefer and recommend over this one. And lastly, we have the Lift and Luminate Serum Concealer from No. 7. Again, I wanted to love this, especially because I have been such a fan of recently the No. 7 Restore and Renew foundation, as well as the Protect and Perfect, I want to say. I'll leave those foundations down below. I've just been really loving them, but this concealer, it looks dry. It's not giving much coverage. Again, it's not working. So there's no reason for me to hold on to it, especially because, you know, with a concealer, I can try it a couple times and just be like, it's gonna sit here if I don't give it to someone else. You guys know I love doing roundup videos on products that I really love, and that's what makes me happy, but I also feel like it's important for me to sprinkle in these videos so that you guys know the products that I would pass on, because I am trying out so much. Sometimes you do have to give a little bit of airtime to the products that have not worked out. So I hope that you guys did enjoy it. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in my next one.